Hi, folks. Tacitus today, your pushback channel, and thank you for joining this audio no pictures live stream. Please listen to this presentation as you would a radio broadcast as you drive along in your car or your truck or on public transport. In this essay, I'd like to talk about the never-ending and ongoing propaganda-laden drama of supposed remedies or proposed remedies, at least, to stop this epidemic, pandemic, super pandemic, turbo pandemic of alleged violence against women. Now, in in Australia, there's been some proposals and a recent report or a study that's been done on violence against women. Now, when I was looking for a thumbnail image to put in the video, I just called up, violence against women and, that sort of stuff, and just looking through. And there was 50 images per page. And I think I was on page 3 before I got an image that where there was not a white man who was committing these crimes. So apparently it's a crime that pretty much only white men ever commit. Now, given that the non-white population of Australia is approaching 50% now. I mean, if you include students and things like that, it's easily that. But somehow it's a crime that only white men commit. And if you look at the pictures too, it's not in the poorest neighbourhoods of the propaganda images are a fairly well-to-do middle-class white family with she's well-dressed and she's just been to the hairdresser and she's got full makeup on and he's well-dressed and they've both been to the gym and they're both looking pretty good and that's the places where now that would be the least likely where it would happen. I mean, you'd be lucky if you'd even get 1% of the so straight away you're in propaganda territory. But isn't it interesting that for some reason when it comes to this violence against women that there's this utter hysterical fixation that it's only middle-class straight white men that do it. Now, the real stats show a completely different picture, but ideologically, that's not what they want to talk about. It is a straight white, and that's the if you like, ideologically, they want to have it's a battle for gender, social power within the genders. That's the thing. So middle-class women, as represented by the activists who are mainly lesbian, by the way, not exclusively, but mainly, their view is that it's a social power struggle. It's not really about violence at all. It's a social power struggle, and I'll talk more about that in just a minute. So I read through some of this report, and it goes for close on 200 pages, and I didn't read the whole thing. It's a very politicized report. It's ideological hysteria on steroids. If you sort of go through where the sources are for the information, the radical activist NGOs have obviously done a lot of work here supplying information for this report. And if you start to sort of really drill down, look through some of it, you realize that they've actually got this report from things like African refugee camps, that sort of thing. So they've gone to some of the most violent, civil war and machetes chopping people. They've gone to those sort of places to get data. They don't tell you it's from there. So they use that. Violence against women has never been greater. It is an international pandemic. It is 99 out of every 100 women are beaten to death every day by these Nazis. So, but they don't tell you that they're getting this from an African refugee camp. So they try and sort of by inserting these cuts, if you like, into the information flow, the propaganda flow, they can suggest or imply that this is happening just around the corner in Australia, in Sydney, in some nice middle-class suburb. It might be a nice middle-class suburb with a nice house, but behind those walls, there's the most evil Nazi fascist. Every man behind those middle-class walls is a Nazi waving the swastika. Yeah! So it's now, if the problem is as bad as they claim, you don't need to tell lies. You don't need to gin it up. You don't have to inflate statistics. The problem, if it's as bad as you say, that the facts facts will say it. But instead they resort to the most hysterical propaganda. So you know straight away that it's actually not a big issue if they have to resort to so many lies. Now, on the other side of it, and I had some time ago now, we were at a barbecue by a barbecue lunch, and it was put on by a woman who's married to quite a rich man, but fancies herself as a real leftist, cutting edge, social justice type activist chick. This is someone who's lives in a $3.5 million house and never has to worry about money. Yet she wants to fancy herself as a bit of a I'm just a poor artist, living in living in cramped, poor conditions. So she's got all these people there at the barbecue, and one of them is involved in the domestic violence industry. Excuse me, which is a bit of a gravy train. These people are parasiting off the taxpayer and as NGOs and so on. So anyway, she's there, and her position is, well, unless we tell lots and lots of lies and turn it into a real sort of propaganda extravaganza, unless we do that, we won't get the attention of government. You have to remember, she says, that the government has got many people putting their hand out for money, and so how do we get to the front of the queue there? Well, we just have to, if there's 10 women who getting abused, or the thing, we have to say there's 1,000 women, or 10,000 or 1 million. It doesn't matter. We just inflate the numbers until such a time as the government people will take notice, and we put pressure on the government by releasing these invented, purely fictitious, delusional statistics. We release those into the media. The media report on them, particularly certain journals that where we can control what they print and what they say. Then the government will get this sort of clamoring. We'll give this idea there's grassroots clamoring to deal with this emergency, and that forces the government to act and at least give us some money. So she says the way the whole thing works is we have to tell a lot of lies, otherwise we won't get them. So my sort of response to that was, okay, well, I do understand that conceptually, but if you have to tell so many lies and gin up the stats to such an extent, then is the problem big enough to warrant the sort of attention that you're trying to give it? If there's only 10, so her response then is, well, if even one woman is being abused by a man anywhere in the entire universe, then all women are abused. If even one woman is abused, if a man even looks sideways at one woman, then all women are being abused everywhere in the whole universe ever. Da, 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 da. And wow, I mean, with that attitude, you could also say, well, if one woman tells a lie, then all women tell lies and no one should be believed. Oh, no. This only works one way. So she says. Now, just going through this report, again, very politicized. If you look through the list of academics that really have the prime, real major role, if not almost all of it, I think, in contributing information and data, alleged statistics, and supposed on the ground experience in this matter, then they're pretty much all gender studies academics. So they're on the cutting edge of hating men, hating white men, hating families, hating capitalism, and so on. So why you would have people like that involved? I want to know the truth and the facts. I need impartial information. So if I was say I was a politician or anybody who receiving this report, I would look at the people say, hey, I want independent, verifiable, not this anecdotal stuff of, I spoke to a woman the other day and she said she was abused 5 million times in the last 5 minutes. I'm not interested in that. I want factual, verified information. So anyway, these they're all activists. They're nearly all lesbians, not all, but nearly all lesbians, and they're all activists, and they're all involved in an academic area of activism that's acutely anti-straight white male. So again, why would you want to listen to something like that? And the statistics are utterly fantastic. Now, also, again, the cut-ins here, for example, they mention the suburb in Australia that that is probably one of the poorest suburbs and the most welfare dependent and the most crime-ridden suburbs in the whole of Australia. And now you don't know that unless you know Sydney and the area. I mean, you could do some research pretty quickly and work it out. But this is an area where, you know, crimes of all nature are off the charts: car theft, street assault, you know, burglary, you name it. This is just off the charts. And they claim that in this place that they're turning away 70% of the women who come for help with domestic violence are turned away. And this shows that there's a lack of resources, and this shows that the government has to spend gazillions upon gazillions to ensure that these women are supported and looked after and taken care of and so on. Now, what's interesting here is they actually don't talk, that there at no point is there actually verifiable statistics on actual violence. When I say violence, you know, bashing or you know, pulling out guns or knives, or, you know, something like that, something actual violence. Instead, it's talked about here. They talk frequently. They start the sentence or the paragraph with violence is an epidemic. You know, they love to sort of keep on pushing that one. But as they work through it, you see that it's the fear of violence. They've now morphed actual violence or any form of violence, and they've expanded that definition. So a raised voice, you know, arguing over who's going to drive the car, or who got most of the warm blankets on the winter night, or something. You know, so down to those little things. Did he boil the water for a cup of coffee and drink the coffee first? Because that's domestic violence. So they've expanded the definitions, but they've expanded it one step further, which was pretty clear through this. And this is all part of the ginning up process, where should any woman fear the possibility of domestic violence, even fear its possibility, then that is domestic violence. And I mean, you're kidding me, right? So they've now gone one step further, that it's nothing physical, nothing you've said, nothing you've done, nothing you've even thought. This is, if she believes that domestic violence is even possible, might happen, it's the fear of it, then that is now domestic violence. And also, if you read through these this report, and others, by the way, I've seen, they talk about equalizing social power between the genders. So he has more social power. So what we have to do is equalize the power. How do we equalize it? Well, at any time she can call the police and say, I want you to send over some big policemen to bash him up, or to put him in prison, or to take him out the back, or throw him out the house. What if it's his house? Doesn't matter. Throw him out the house, because that will equalize social power. So they've got this obsession with equalizing social power, but they don't know what it is and how it could be equalized. I mean, what does that even mean? So they want to use the power of the state to intimidate, threaten, subjugate, oppress, humiliate the man, because that will equalize the social power. Now, you know, I don't know how they arrive at this, but it's clearly delusional ideology at work. But it's throughout this report, and it's phrased slightly differently, but there's no question. So the two big issues here are fear of domestic violence, the possibility of it, and equalising power. Now, the equalising social power between the genders, this comes across as probably the bigger of the two issues in this report. So it's nothing about there is actually a violence against women epidemic, far from it. This is just a cover story for this equalising the social power between the genders. So the men are imagined to have all this social power. Women are imagined to have no social power, or much less of it. So how do we equalise that? Well, what we do is we hire a bunch of goons. You know, we have a bunch of goons that are controlled by the government, paid by the taxpayer, and we use them to come in and intimidate and humiliate men. And that'll fix it. That'll fix the social power. But other than creating resentment, I'm not sure what it would do. Now, what's interesting is I went back and looked at some newspaper articles from just over 30 years ago, and the statistics they claim as the number of women that are getting subject to family violence, as they call it, is exactly the same as it was 30 years ago. But gazillions of dollars have been spent in between then and now, and every year it's the same. There's an epidemic. It's a pandemic. It's never been worse. It's horrific. It's a crisis. It's urgent. Women are crying out. It's an epidemic. And this is the same language again that they were using from 30 years ago, plus 30 years ago. There's also the cool phrases in there like economic insecurity for women. That there's a desert of assistance. Now, so I don't know how they describe that, but if a woman has to travel more than a mile to a women's, ideological, fanatical help centre, then it's a desert. It's a desert. Again, more sort of emotive language that. Now, one of the things they want is a $5,000 cash handout to women who claim to be victims of domestic violence. Now, we need to sort of look at the threshold of evidence here that women, so-called victims need to apply. So that let's suppose you're a woman in a poor area, and you're someone who makes daily ruinous, self-destructive life decisions, and you've spent all the money you have on drugs, and you go to the women's help centre here and say, look, I spent all my money on drugs. Okay, I fucked up, but I want you to give me money. Well, no, we're not going to give you any money. You have to say that you're being abused by a man. A straight man has to be abusing you. Now, if you say that and you sign this form and you tick this box, then we will give you money. You mean that's all I have to do? Do I have to provide evidence or proof? No, you have to say it. That's the evidence bar. Okay, then I'll say it. All right, then here's the money. So that's how you get domestic violence claimants, because they're not going to get a penny until they say that they were abused by a man. Now, the same goes for children who want to run. When I say children, 15, 16-year-old want to run away from home. Let's say they have an argument with their parents about money. She wants to go at night. She's 15 and she wants to go night clubbing and thinks that her parents should pay for it. And if they won't, they're assholes. And she threatens to run away. And they fine. Why don't you go and do it? And you're grounded and no more allowance for you. And don't you talk to your parents away? Something like that. Then she can run away. Now she can go to a shelter for runaway children, but she can only access. She just says, I had an argument. My dad doesn't want me to go out night clubbing anymore, and I'm 15, and he says I shouldn't drink alcohol and come back staggering drunk at 3 a.m, and which is not unreasonable. But she doesn't want that. There's a fucking screw him. I know from high school that my straight white male dad is a fucking Nazi. So just because he tells me I'm 15 years old and can't go night clubbing and get drunk out of my school, just because he says that just means he's Hitler and he's a swastika waving Nazi. So I'm going to screw him. I'll show him. I'll run away. That'll scare him. He'll be worried sick, and that'll teach him. And he's not going to tell me about and so on. So now she wants to go somewhere, and she needs a roof over her head. She wants something to eat and this and that. So she goes to one of these children's shelters. Now, they won't just let her come. They say, you can, oh, yeah, sure. No, did he tell you couldn't go nightclubbing and get drunk out of your skull at 15? Did he tell you that? Naughty, naughty, naughty. You can stay here. We'll help you stick it up him. No, she can't do that. She can't say that. They'll say, well, we'll put you up. We'll give you a free bed and a nice clean sheets and heating, and we'll give you free food. We'll give you this. We'll even give you some cash. But you have to say, he abused you. That's it. So tick the box on this form, and then we'll give you the money. So, okay, yeah, all right. Well, fuck, he abused me. Well, what did he do to you? Come and you go, well, he picked me up and he threw me down the stairs. He kicked me and threw me against the wall, beat me, and then he chased me around with a shotgun. Oh, fucking hell. You can stay here as long as you want, baby. And it's that sort of burden of proof. Now, is there any proof does she have to supply any evidence or proof? No, because she's an oppressed victim and the perp is a straight white male. That's it. Evidence not needed. Now, the same goes for things like if a woman goes into, one of the welfare, social security welfare officers, whatever they call them, and goes in there and says, well, I want some money, and again, she's made bad life decisions. It may be just momentary misfortune or something, but she's made bad life decisions, and she wants someone else to pay for it. Now, she can't just do that and walk in and go, screwed up, spent the money on drugs, or I've been buying things that I can't really afford, or I kept him coming late to work, and then I told the boss to fuck off, and then he fired me. So, that isn't going to wash. That's. But if she goes in and says, "Oh, well, I got a kid, and it's and I nominate," they say, "Well, we're not going to give you any money until you nominate the guy." Well, I don't know who it is. It doesn't matter. Just nominate somebody, for fuck's sake. Give me a name, and then we'll give you the money. You don't give us a name, you'll get no money. It was Billy Bob from Smithville. I'm done. Billy Bob from Smithville, we'll go chase him. You don't have to worry about anything now. Here's your money. So by lowering the burden of proof and by lowering the evidence bar into just asserting it, which is what we're talking about here with this violence against women thing, they can create armies of, masses of statistics that we're turning away. 100 million women are coming into us every day, and we have to turn away. We don't have the money. And of course, that's absolute nonsense. That they're in an area that's very poor, and where there's a lot of women who are drug dependent and who are mentally handicapped, who forgot to take their medication today, or and so on and so forth. And these people are. These women are in constant need of money and handouts, and some of them just want attention. Now, a good friend of ours worked for a while, was doing a course in social work, and she was working again in one of the poorer, more drug-ridden areas, helping with social services. And people would come in and want, particularly women, but also trans and gay and that sort of thing. They were drug addicts and they were leaving, maybe they were living on the street and this sort of stuff. And they'd come in wanting money, and they were told, no, you can't have money. You have to meet certain criteria. You have to, for example, we have to know that you're in danger of self-harm, as the phrase is, self-harm. So they would pull out a knife. They would go, all right, then they would go into the corner, pull out a knife or something sharp, cut themselves, and then come back and say, okay, now I've self-harmed myself. You have to give me money now. And that would be it. So they can literally cut themselves and get a handout of cash, and also get a free pass to a place to stay for a week, and psychologists will fuss over them, and this. So this is the situation we're in now, where people can self-declare and demand all sorts of handout and benefits. So what they want to do is any woman can walk in and say, I've been abused by a man. Okay, sign here. Here's $5,000, and that's viewed as, well, we're just helping our oppressed women. Oh, yeah, right, sure. You've been with Tassos today, your Pushback channel, and thank you for listening.